Hello and welcome to our webinar on SaaS and AI usage control, securing data in the workplace. My name is Tara Montgomery and I'll be your presenter for today. So a little bit about me first. I am one of the product managers and senior QA engineers here at MONITORAPP. My background spans both software engineering and security architecture, with my focus being on SASE platforms and SSE security stack. Just a little bit of housekeeping first. Today's session is being recorded and will be uploaded to MONITORAPP's YouTube channel, which is shown here at MONITORAPP 5051. We're aiming for around 40 minutes today, and I'll be covering the threat landscape and walking through the CASB, Gen AI security, and DLP capabilities of our SSE platform. If you have any questions after the session or during, please reach out to marketing@monitorapp.com for general inquiries, or support@AIONCLOUD.com for anything technical. So let me introduce our company. MONITORAPP has been a leading platform and cybersecurity B2B company for the last 20 years in South Korea, and over the last 6 years, we've been expanding into the global markets. So as I said, we were established in 2005, and we're headquartered here in Seoul, South Korea, but we now have overseas presence in both the US, in California, and in Japan. So moving forwards, MONITORAPP has been a consistent presence in the Asian cybersecurity market for over 2 decades, and AIONCLOUD is our evolution into the global market, specifically being accessible through a cloud-native security platform. We've been featured in Gartner's market guides, and we are a top player in the SSE and WAAP domains. Now, AIONCLOUD is our cloud-based security service edge platform operating across more than 40 data centers in 15 countries. The platform covers 4 major security pillars. We have website and API protection, secure internet access, which will be our focus for today, secure remote access with our ZTNA and agentless access, and finally, our newly implemented endpoint detection and response capabilities. Now, today's session will focus specifically on CASB, Gen AI, and DLP, and how to protect data in a modern hybrid-based workplace. So here's our agenda for today. We'll move through all 4 sections. First, we'll set the scene with the shifting threat landscape, because understanding why these tools matter is just as important as understanding how they work. Then we'll go into depth on CASB for SaaS access control, Gen AI security for managing AI tools and risk, and DLP to prevent data loss, leakage. We'll follow that up with a live demo of the AIONCLOUD console and then open it up to Q&A. So let's begin. So to start, let's talk about some context. The threat landscape has shifted significantly in the past few years. Keeping up is a significant challenge, and the growing risk organizations face today isn't the external attacker trying to break in through your perimeter anymore. It's more often than not your own employees simply doing their jobs. So let's look at some numbers here. And these tell a very clear story. We have rapidly adopted new technologies that make life easier for everyone. Everyone, that is, except those of us managing risk and data. With AI adoption making work easier for everyone, companies are often slower to adapt than individuals. And because of this, employees are bringing their own AI tools into the workplace, linking them with their personal cloud storage, and using them to manage work files, create drafts, or even store copies of company data. All of this is then compounded by the risk that these leaks are often undetected for a significantly longer period of time. Companies have multiple security systems all of them under different interfaces and consoles. We have VPNs, SWGs, firewalls, API protection services, file management, and many more SaaS applications and services, all with their own security rules and configurations, many of which end up completely unconfigured or misconfigured due to the growing complexity of enterprise security. Now, there's been this fundamental shift in risk over the last 10 years. Traditionally, security was perimeter focused, defending against things like SQL injections, brute force attacks, malware delivery. The trusted zone was inside the office. It was a physical location. And you only had to worry about things like network and web access firewalls, data permissions on the file servers, and maybe a web access firewall to protect your internal domain protection. Back when I was in managed services, the biggest security risk we had was people clicking on ransomware through emails. Today, the risk comes from legitimate users and legitimate systems. Employees uploading intellectual property to AI tools, shadow IT apps running outside of IT's knowledge, data flowing outside the perimeter, and security teams with limited visibility of what any of this is doing. The boundary between the trusted and untrusted zones has essentially dissolved. And because of that, security posture needs to reflect that new reality. Now, to give a sense of scale and variety of these problems, security teams are managing an ever-growing number of consoles and tools. And yet, the risky scenarios are multiplying faster than they can manage. Think about each of these examples. An employee using the corporate Office 365 account at work, but syncing it to their home computer's OneDrive. Or employees pasting customer contracts into ChatGPT to summarize their key obligations containing PII, like personal information and contract terms. These are things that are happening often, and they're happening across the board in many organizations. Now, to summarize that risk landscape, there are three core modern data leakage surfaces we need to address. The first is SaaS applications. Employees using personal Google Drives, Dropbox, or Office 365 accounts are often creating unmonitored data pathways with no visibility or audit trail. And the risk here is high. Data is leaving the security perimeter, and the company no longer has control over what happens to those files. The second is generative AI. Right now, everyone is using AI for something. It's a tool that has made systems much easier and more accessible for a larger number of people. However, the way they're being used right now is out of control. Staff are uploading sensitive documents or source code into things like ChatGPT or Copilot, or other tools that may be used to, these are tools that are used and submitting that data for third-party AI models to train on. So your source code, your intellectual property is being used by ChatGPT to train on that model. And that means that information could be leaked to outside sources asking similar questions. The third is those internal systems. So a lot of companies are adopting internal Gen AI tools. However, if they're not properly managed with correct guardrails, it allows users internally to query data that they don't have access to. And that's compounded by the fact that poor document access management has increased that surface area in which queries can happen. So even when you're training your own AI on your own internal documentation, you can still be creating surface areas that allow staff to query information they should not have access to. The AIONCLOUD systems we have, they provide protection for all of these things and many more under a single unified system. So let's start looking at some of those systems. So first we have the Cloud Access Security Brokers, or CASB as most people call it. They've become fundamental in how the modern security stack can protect company assets. So a CASB sits between your users and your cloud services. It's your visibility and control layer for everything software as a service related, both sanctioned applications and unsanctioned ones. The 4 core values of this area are visibility, right? Being able to see every SaaS application your employees are using, including shadow IT. Compliance, being able to enforce policies that align to industry standards across cloud applications. Data security, applying granular controls to prevent sensitive data from being uploaded, downloaded, or shared outside of approved channels. And threat protection, detecting and blocking access before data is exfiltrated. If your security team can't confidently answer what cloud apps are your employees using right now, then you need a CASB. Now, to give you an idea, your IT probably doesn't know every single application that your company uses. The average enterprise uses over 1,000 cloud applications a year, and only around 10% of those are actually managed by IT. So the other 90% are looking at your data, are being used to do computations, to create files, to edit files. Those are untracked. And your IT probably doesn't know what other services have access to that shadow IT. And on top of that, 44% of all security failures actually come from misconfigured access controls or a lack of access control at all. Not from sophisticated external attacks, just from these incidental misconfigurations. Now, is this your security team's fault? No, it's not. A lot of organizations simply don't have the bandwidth to do that at scale. There are just too many applications with too many platforms and too many different ways to secure that there's just no way that an IT team right now can access every single one of those applications and configure the security correctly. And all of this happens without an audit trail. So a lot of the time we just don't even know where the data is going and what it's being used for. So let me walk you through a more concrete scenario here. The personal account problem, because this is one that is extremely common, especially because we all use some form of cloud-based storage. So without CASB, an employee logs onto their personal Google Drive from their corporate device. They then upload intellectual property, confidential or sensitive data files to their personal drive. And then from there, the employee can share those files publicly or with external parties, either knowingly or unknowingly through the share with this link option. And because of this, there's no alerting, there's no logs, there's no way to detect or recover that data. The company may never discover the breach in intellectual property. Now, if you had AIONCLOUD CASB, this wouldn't be a problem. The access is identified and logged in real time. Then you can use policies to block upload of sensitive file types or flag content that's using CASB or DLP upload rules. Tenant restriction enforces corporate accounts only, and personal accounts can be blocked. You could use the full audit trail as well to interact with all cloud interactions, and those are automatically obtained and maintained. That includes users, devices, and action logs. Finally, You can trigger alerts through our SIEM integration or Messenger, and IT can act immediately before data is shared further. So here's a breakdown of our CASB capabilities across 3 core modules. Firstly, we have the SaaS access control module, which supports over 1,300 applications, including common applications such as Notion, Confluence, Figma, and many more. Now, these will give you access to control your shadow IT. So you could set these up in a zero trust way where all access is blocked except for the applications that you want. So you can target specific users, groups, roles, or even on a specific time frame schedule. And you can set up logging and messenger alerts upon policy violations so that users can be further trained. You can also set up your own blocking pages so that when a user commits a action that is not allowed, then they can be immediately informed about why or who to contact in order to allow that action. Next up, we have the SaaS in-app controls. Now, this is a smaller suite, but it supports over 90 applications that include the main SaaS applications. So we have Google Suite, Microsoft Office 365, we have Jira and Confluence, and all of the major email systems. Now, what this allows you to do is you can configure specific blocking, allowing, and logging options for all common actions within those applications. So you can have a Google Drive and you can allow access to Google Drive, but you can specifically block uploading files or downloading them, reading and copying them, printing them. Basically, any of the common actions within those applications can be blocked and targeted. And this can also be used for users or user groups or specific roles within your company. Lastly, you have the SaaS reverse access. So this links your SaaS application directly to the AIONCLOUD environment using SAML with X503 certification support, and allows you to restrict direct access to company SaaS applications so that they can only be reached through the AIONCLOUD agent connection. Now, these 3 together give you complete coverage across the full SaaS lifecycle, from access to action to audit. Now let's turn to the Gen AI security, one of the fastest moving and most underestimated risk areas in enterprise security today. So the numbers here are pretty striking. According to Microsoft, 78% of employees are bringing their own AI tools into the workplace. And that's just the ones they know about. Anyone using, say, VS Code right now for your developers, they likely have Copilot enabled by default, meaning they might be unknowingly sharing company source code to be trained by the Copilot AI. So on top of that, 43% of employees have admitted to entering confidential company data into a unrestricted Gen AI tool. So where does this data actually go? Well, every message sent to ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or any of the main LLMs, they might be stored, reviewed, and used to improve the model. And that depends on the user's account settings. Now, most of us, we probably just don't think about whether our queries are being used for that. So many users are likely just allowing their prompts to be used to train the AI model. Now, what happens here is Gen AI will train on your data, and then they will output that data to another user. outside of your system. This can then be shared on and on and on as it continues to train the system further using your confidential data. Now, if you are a company who has decided to adopt Gen AI internally, well, a lot of the times RAG databases aren't secured in a way that uses the proper MCP gateways, and therefore it allows employees to retrieve data well beyond their role's permissions. That means that someone in the development team could incidentally find out the employee details and pay rates of someone in the sales team. That is a breach of confidentiality. And this kind of thing is happening at scale in most organizations. Now, internal Gen AI tools present a second risk layer that often gets overlooked. When you deploy an internal AI assistant connected to your shared drives or SharePoint, the document management gaps that existed quietly for years suddenly become acute security vulnerabilities. Someone like a developer might not know they even have access to payroll because it doesn't show up in their file structure, but if you share that with an AI tool and give it access to everything, then it will give that information to the users who query for that information. Now, there are three specific scenarios here to be aware of. First, we've got the document management gaps. These internal Gen AI tools that have been trained on your data, they retrieve the documentations based on the query that those users were never supposed to see. Because the file permissions were not managed correctly, and those access rules were unconfigured because they weren't a problem in the past. Next, you've got things like cross-departmental data bleed. This is when an employee in sales asks for customer context and they receive an HR salary data or confidential board resolutions stored in the same index. Lastly, you have the insider threat amplification. You have disgruntled or careless employees using internal AI to rapidly extract and summarize large amounts of sensitive data far faster than any manual method would allow. This allows them to pull much larger amounts of information before IT really understands what is happening. So the message clear is here. Even before deploying an internal Gen AI, document management and DLP is really important. So let's talk about AIONCLOUD Gen AI security controls. We provide a comprehensive set of controls across 5 areas. Firstly, we have the custom keyword policies. This lets you build inspection rules for prompts using keywords or regex expressions, as well as using our cross-channel DLP policies, giving you more granular control over what users can submit to Gen AI tools. Our file upload scanning applies similar policy logic to file uploads, controlling not only the file type, but also the content within those files. Pre-built prompt topics covers sensitive categories out of the box. For example, we have personal information, source code, as well as common LLM attack methods such as prompt attacks and information poisoning. So you don't need to build every rule from scratch. On top of that, we have our full audit and reporting, which gives you complete visibility into every Gen AI interaction. Who used the tool, which tool they used, what topic they asked about, the full prompt text and any files they uploaded, as well as the AI response. Along with this and our customized block messages, it lets you educate users at the point of violation, reducing support requests and building a culture of security awareness over time. Now let's move on to our DLP and preventing data leakage. Now I want to start by resetting the expectation of what modern DLP actually means, because it's changed significantly. Traditional DLP was built in a world where the data lived inside the protected perimeter. But today, work happens across SaaS applications. You've got the cloud tools, AI, and remote devices. And the perimeter-only approach leaves enormous gaps. Modern DLP needs to follow the data, not just the boundary. That means covering data in motion, files being uploaded, emailed, and submitted to AI tools before they leave, data at rest, sensitive documents sitting in shared drives or SaaS applications that need to be identified and controlled, and data in use, real-time actions like copying and paste, downloads, screenshots, or printing of sensitive content. AIONCLOUD DLP adds deep content inspection that uses pattern matching and keywords, fingerprinting, and ML classifiers, as well as context-aware policies that you can create through our cross-content DLP. Now, poor document management is one of the underappreciated DLP risks, and most organizations focus on stopping deliberate exfiltration. But misconfigured sharing settings and poor documentation hygiene often create the exact same outcome without malicious intent. Anyone with this link sharing setting in Google Workspace or SharePoint create permanent doors in which sensitive data can be exfiltrated. Now, with our DLP, if you are protecting your systems, users can't really grant access or input data that would allow for these legitimate and illegitimate ways of access. So third-party contributors and departed staff won't have access to upload and download these documents, as the DLP rules that you've created will not allow them to access any information that may be considered classified. Here are the core DLP capabilities in AIONCLOUD. Custom DLP policies let you build inspection rules tailored to your organization, regulatory IDs, financial patterns, source code signatures, going well beyond generic templates, which we also provide. Inline traffic inspection applies those policies in real time as data transits through the AIONCLOUD SSE platform. Cross-channel coverage ensures consistency across the enforcement for web uploads, SaaS applications, cloud storage, email, and AI tool interactions. There are no gaps between the channels. And full audit reporting logs every DLP event with full context, the user, device, destination, and content classifications, as well as any actions taken, ready for compliance review, incident reports, or executive reporting. Now we're going to move into the live demo portion of today's session. I'll be walking you through the AIONCLOUD SASE console directly. We'll cover 4 specific scenarios: CASB tenant restriction and application blocking, Gen AI policy configuration and access control by user policy, Gen AI content inspection blocking, a sensitive prompt in real time, and DLP custom policy creation with inline traffic inspection. All right, so let's jump into our console here. So I've already activated our agent and currently am running through the secure tunnel to our cloud infrastructure. And as you can see, I'm just logged in as my administrator account. And you can see down here that we have one connected device on our analytics view here. So Today we're going to be going over the CASB, Gen AI, and DLP. If you do want to look at some of our other services here, we have other webinars throughout the year, and you can check those out as they come out, or you can watch the previous webinars on these systems that we've released the last year. So let's jump into start with setting up a DLP policy. So from here, we can just click on the DLP menu and start by creating. And you can see that we have a variety of predefined options. These work for most of the standard global numbers, as well as some more specific identity numbers, such as the Malaysian MyCAD or Singapore's NRIC. And if your company does have, or your country does have numbers, you can always send them in to us and we can add these in as we are filling out these predefined lists. Otherwise, if something that you want is not here, you can just simply create your own custom one. So we have a few options here. We have keyword, which will just match whatever text you enter in plain text, or we have a regex, which you can enter a full regex expression here. In order to match a specific term or style of terms that you want. So we have that flexibility. So I'm gonna just create a basic one with my name, Tom Montgomery, and I'm going to, this is the name of the DLP, and we can add this as a list. So I can add a few words in here. Let's just add my name, so we'll see if we can enter those things. And this is inclusive, so it will match if there is that string anywhere within the text. This is why we have the regex options. If you wanted to, say, match white spaces specifically, or to be an exact term rather than just the current letters. And then we can enable that, and we'll make the name of the DLP policy here. Let's just call it the test DLP. We can add a description as well, which will help us understand what this is. So I'll add my trigger in here. And there we go. And we can complete. You can obviously add more if you'd like. And you can use any combination of predefined or custom made for any single DLP policy. You might want to have multiple DLP policies for different users, so you can create them here and then add them to the rules you require later. So that one's created. Now, the DLP on its own doesn't actually do anything. We need to activate this in another section. So either in our firewall or our RBI, our SWG, CASB, Gen AI. So in order to show you this, I might test both the Gen AI and the DLP together. So let's jump into Gen AI. So in here, we'll have a list of policies, and you can search those policies. As well as they are first in, first out. So the top rule will always take priority. And as you can see, you can have block and logging rules. If a block rule is triggered, the list will stop there. It will not go on and check logging rules. So you should always put your logging and allow rules at the top of the list and the block rules at the bottom. Now we're going to create a rule here that will use our DLP. So we have our targeted Gen AI. We're going to target all the different Gen AI rules, and we're going to target my specific account. So from here, we can use a variety of tools. So we have the different prompt topics, and we have a list of pre-generated topics, as I talked about before. And that will allow you to simply block these specific queries that we've identified for ourselves. And then what we want to test, though, is we're going to test the DLP. So I can use request keyword. This is when a request is made to a Gen AI. that is targeted, then if that specific word or characters within there are in the query, then it will be blocked. Now, as you can see, it's the same with the in, which matches keywords, or you can use a match regex to match specific white space or a full regular expression. The difference here is, say, if you were to add in the word test, then this would trigger on anything that contains the 4 characters in this line test, which means if you were to write the word, say, contest, then that would trigger this rule. That's why we have the regex expressions, so that you can ensure that you are blocking specifically exactly what you would like. So we're going to test the DLP, and as you can see, my test DLP rule has now populated this list, and every DLP rule you create will populate the list here. So I'll add that and make sure I activate it. And we've created this rule immediately, it's activated. As you can see, I'm currently connected. So we can simply go to, say, ChatGPT. And then if I ask about something like my name, we get the block here. So as you can see, it gives you, by default, we have this block page set up. As you can see in here, just to let you know, I have a custom block page message set up. You can create your own custom block pages here. So mine specifies the rule name. Right? You've been blocked by the test block DLP, and it tells us the reasoning behind why you are blocked, which is the GenAI keyword request DLP. So it knows that it has been blocked by a specific DLP request. To show you where those are, down here in global security, I can go to the block message in GenAI, and we can create a new block page. As you can see, we have our own filters here, and by default, it will just tell you the rule name, but you can add anything in here, like please contact admin@monitorapp.com if you feel this is an incorrect blocking. Right, just something simple like that. I can call it extra info. I can complete that. All right. Now, always you have to have one block page by default. You can change the name. You can change it. By default, you cannot delete this page because obviously we need a block page. So when I head back to GenAI policy, I can edit this rule and change it to my new extra info. Make sure I complete. I can go back here and type in the other word we are matching. And there you go. The rule block name, and then please contact admin@monitorapp.com if you feel this is an incorrect blocking. All right, so it allows you to do that. Now, say I was going to be typing what in tarnations is that. This is blocked, right? Because tarnations here contains the 4 characters we are searching for, and so it will be blocked. If I wanted it to specifically match only this word, then I would use a regular expression in order to specify the white spaces here. So moving forward, so that is the general DLP function for GenAI. There is DLP in both the SWG and the firewalls, and those will be covered at a later date, but it is exactly the same system where you will specify the DLP that you wish to be blocked. The other thing I wanted to show here in the rules is we do have the ability to block file uploads. And again, this can be used in this is not the file name, this is the actual file contents. So because we have the next generation in-depth scanning, and we can check the contents of the file itself before it is uploaded. That way we can ensure that even if a client or an employee is uploading information inside a document instead of just through text, it will still trigger these rules. And the file upload also works with the DLP as well. Lastly, I wanted to show you in the GenAI just some of these prompt topics. So you can select any amount of them. I'm just going to select all right now. And when I complete that, then if I was to ask about one of those topics, say private personal information, I can say, something like, can you please give me the addresses or phone numbers of such and such staff member, right? Right, so from here, when I prompt this out, it should be blocked. And there you go. So we've got the rule name again, and then the same block message that we set up before. So this is how our GenAI security works. I can also do the same thing over on Gemini, just to show you that it works over there. So let's just copy the same prompt, throw that one into Gemini, and you'll get the same block message. So this works across the board on all of the integrated AIs, and we're constantly integrating more and more of these AI systems into our services. So let's move on to the last part, which is the CASB. So I know this is a short demonstration. We're just going to be quickly going through each of the sections. So there is a lot more we can do with the GenAI, and in combination with the SWG, you can actually straight block those applications, and same with the firewall. So there are further levels you can take that, or this kind of protection, where this is simply accessing, say, ChatGPT and Gemini through the website, but the GenAI system will also block these kind of queries through any endpoints or applications that use those endpoints for these services. So let's move on to the SaaS access section. So in here, let's create up a new rule. So we can schedule this for any time, daily, weekly, monthly, if we want to disable certain access to certain applications. We can select from this very long list of applications, and it just goes on and on and on. So I'm going to jump in, and I'll just go with Notion for now. This is a very common one to get blocked. And then I can specify all the users, or if I was to set up some user groups up in the user section, I can specify those. So let's just target my account that I'm logged into on the agent right now. So with this rule in place, I should not be able to access either the Notion application on my computer or through the website. So I don't have the Notion application right now on my computer, but I do have access to the website. So let's go to notion.com. And you can see here, blocked and then blocked by the rule name. Now again, these block pages can be customized in the same section of the settings for security. And for this one, you would be using the web block. So let's jump back in here, and you can see that you can choose the block pages here. So I'm just using the default one, but you can use your own images. You can even, because they are HTML coded, you can do redirections. You can block with a specific response code, or you can write any amount of HTML into that web page. Now, Notion.com isn't the only endpoint for Notion. You guys might notice that when you do go to Notion, it goes to actually notion.so most of the time for your actual pages. Again, that website is also blocked. Let me just close that one and reopen it again. And let's show you again. Notion.so blocked as well. So now that's using the website version. Let's have a look at an application that I know is blocked through the application that I have. Being in QA, I have a lot of Postman on my account, on my computer, so let's block that one. So as you can see, you can add any amount. So we're blocking both Notion and Postman right now. And I'm going to complete that one and just search up for Postman and see what happens. So the application is opening, right? And it has opened here. If I try and say sign in to my Notion account, I'm blocked from that service. If I was to say try and send one of these to a website, the sending request will just never send. It will get blocked by our service through the CASB. So could not send request. So it not only works on the web application side of things of the website, but it also works within the applications themselves. Now, let's jump into the in-app control, which is a lot more detailed. This gives you granular access to what you want to block within an application. So say you don't want to block the entire application, just a specific subset of actions within, then this is the place you would do that. So we have a long list of applications, and we've tried to separate these out into what is possible for singular applications within the suites. And there are also common ones. So we have the standard suites such as Google and Office 365. We have your Jira, your Confluence, your Dropbox, Salesforce, Slack, and Messenger applications. If you keep scrolling down, we have most of the core email sections. And because what we do like to do is if there are certain applications that you wish to have added onto here, you can always send them through to us and we can do our best to add in-app controls to those applications for you. And that's all done through our TI team, through the CTI Labs, which is a AI Labs, which is one of our companies that does a lot of our endpoint and pattern management. And that is why our service is so effective, is we have a very strong and registered presence in the pattern detection. So let's quickly jump in. Let's just go to Google Drive and let's block uploads. So you can see there might not be very many options here, say upload and copy. That's simply because the architecture of the way Google has done things limits the ability. So we do have a Google Common. Now, Google Common will work across all common Google applications within the Google Suite. So that's why things like download and rename are over here, because they use similar endpoints. So, and that's simply just the way we've had to design this system based on the way Google has designed their own internal systems. So we're going to block uploads here for Google Drive. We're going to block it for my user. Excellent. So that was successful. It's activated. I've already looked into my Google Drive up here just quickly. So let's try and upload something. So I'm just going to grab a random file from my desktop and throw that in there, and it is uploading. So it says started uploading, but there's been no progress. And this will just stay there like this. It won't show a block message because your computer is attempting to connect to the drive through the upload system, but it just can't reach that endpoint. And so it'll just stay there, unable to upload. And eventually it will cut out and say that it couldn't. But what I'll do is, just to expedite the process, we're just going to go have a quick look at our analytics and our logs. So we've kind of tested through all of these applications, the CASB, GenAI, and DLP. And now we'll go look at the last part, which is the logs. So you can see access logs for everything that has been accessed by every user. That's every endpoint available. You can see the endpoints that I have for these websites here. But we're most focusing on the security. So you can see here that we have a variety of upload attempts by this machine. You can see the Postman attempts that I made and the Notion attempts that I made today. So all of those are blocked, and we can view further information here, saying which endpoint we're trying to use, and where the source, the destination, the country, the destination of country, the applications, and even the functions. Basically, any information that could be provided by us for this endpoint, we have provided in these security logs. And that's the same for GenAI. So for the GenAI, we sent those prompt requests, and you can see every prompt request that I made that was blocked displays here. Not only that it shows the prompt that I sent and the details that for the matching topics. So this actually matched as legal and harmful because I was asking for personal information that could be used incorrectly. And you can see that it also was blocked, would have been blocked by personal information. So it shows the similarity. So it was 60% similar to this and 40% here over the entirety. Now, these can be incorrect sometimes, and that does happen. And if it does happen, you can always send in information to us to query these, and we can rectify those situations. Otherwise, if we look at the previous ones that were blocked by DLP, it will show us what was asked and then which keyword, which detection basis it was. So it was blocked because of the DLP, test DLP rule that we set up. And that is the basics of the logs, CASB, GenAI, and DLP. Now that we've finished the demo, before we move on to QA, let me summarize why AIONCLOUD is the right choice for data security. It's a unified SASE platform. That means we have CASB, DLP, GenAI controls, but we also have secure web gateway, firewall as a service, and zero trust network access, all from the one console. In addition, we also do web access and API security, and we have website posture checks, as well as tools like RBI, remote browser isolation. There's no vendor juggling, there's no security gaps between tools. This is all of your security platform under one roof. Now, next up we have single policy engine. You write a policy once and it enforces it across web traffic, SaaS applications, AI tools, remote access, consistently regardless of where the user is. We're fully cloud native, which means there's no hardware required. You can deploy by installing one lightweight agent per device, and your security scales with your workforce. Not only that, our pricing is based on employee count, not the data volume that you're using. That means it's very predictable and scalable pricing as your business grows. We have a global edge network with over 40 data centers across 15 countries, ensuring policies are enforced at the fastest SSE node for each user. no VPN hairpinning, no performance degradation. Lastly, you can see every user, every device, every application, every data movement, all in one dashboard. Your compliance reporting is built in. This is why AIONCLOUD is one of the top vendors for SSE, because we have it all under one platform. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and please submit any questions to marketing@monitorapp.com, or if it's a technical question, support@ioncloud.com. Thank you very much.